Okay, so what if the next PlayStation controller had no buttons at all? And I'm being completely serious. No D-pad, no face buttons, no triggers, just one smooth, smart surface. It sounds like something pulled straight from a sci-fi movie, right? But this is a real concept Sony is actually exploring in a new patent. And honestly, it could completely change how we all play games. So let's just dive right into the big question here. A Sony patent that went public in early 2026 suggests, yeah, maybe the next controller will have literally 0 buttons. The main idea is to swap out every single physical, mechanical part we're used to for a dynamic, touch-sensitive interface. I mean, this is a huge departure from decades of design we've all mastered. So what's the big idea? Why do this? So how on earth would a controller with no buttons even work? Well, to get our heads around it, we have to look at the incredibly smart tech that's described in the patent. It's this tech that's designed to make a buttonless controller not just a possibility, but something that could actually be reliable. The patent calls the core idea capacitive touch zones. Really, the easiest way to think about it is like a super advanced smartphone screen that's been molded into the shape of a controller. So instead of having fixed plastic buttons, you'd have this smart surface where virtual buttons can show up, disappear, get bigger or smaller, and even move around depending on the game you're playing or even just how you're holding it. Now, this is where it gets really clever, because this combination of sensors is designed to solve the #1 problem with touch controls: accidentally hitting stuff. Sony's patent lays out how a bunch of different sensors work together. You've got optical sensors tracking exactly where your fingers are. Then, and this is the crucial part, thermal and pressure sensors can tell the difference between you just resting your thumb on the surface versus making an intentional press. And to top it all off, haptic actuators would try to give you that satisfying click feeling of a real button. If this works, it could create a whole new language for how we interact with games, way beyond just tapping X to jump. We're talking swipes to change your weapon, pinching to zoom in with a scope, all sorts of complex multi-touch actions. The patent even talks about pre-touch detection, where the controller knows your finger is about to touch it. Just imagine a game where you could prime a magic spell just by hovering your finger, and then cast it with a quick tap. That's the kind of new gameplay this could open up. Okay, so we've covered the how, but the really big question is why? Why would Sony even think about making such a radical change? Well, if you look at the patent filings, the main driver behind this whole futuristic concept is actually a really powerful one: making gaming accessible to absolutely everyone. And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures the whole philosophy. For decades, we, the players, have had to adapt our hands to a single, fixed, one-size-fits-all controller. The patent points out that this just doesn't work for everyone's hand size or physical abilities. This new concept completely flips that idea on its head. So, what this really means is that this design could tear down some major physical barriers in gaming. You could make the jump button absolutely massive for a tough platformer, or shift all the controls to one side of the controller if you needed to. For players with motor limitations, this could be a total game changer, offering a level of personalization that right now requires you to buy expensive specialized hardware from other companies. But, and this is a big but, this is where the idea gets really, really controversial. You're basically pitting this vision of a super accessible future against decades of muscle memory and that simple, satisfying click of a physical button. This is where innovation goes head-to-head with pure instinct. And the conflict is crystal clear when you lay it out like this. On one side, you've got incredible possibilities for accessibility and total customization. You'd even get rid of stick drift forever because there are no physical sticks to wear out. But on the other side, you lose that physical, tactile feedback that's been the foundation of console gaming forever. And believe me, gamers were very quick to point out the problems here. This quote from a Reddit user named Manic Digressive just cuts right to the heart of the community's biggest worry: losing the ability to play by feel. In any fast-paced shooter or fighting game, if you have to look down at your controller for even a split second, you've already lost the fight. And that leads right into the next major point from another user, Essex. For so many gamers, a controller that's just a touch surface immediately makes them think of all the frustrations of mobile gaming. That's a really powerful and often negative association that Sony would have to work incredibly hard to overcome. And then you get the, well, let's call them the more sarcastic takes, like this one from Infinite Artifacts. It's funny, but it really captures that deep skepticism in the community. There's a real fear that this kind of technology moves too far away from the core, hands-on experience of actually playing a game. trading that satisfying physical feeling for a sleek but maybe soulless piece of tech. Okay, so you've got this incredible potential on one side and a whole lot of intense backlash on the other. So what's the deal? Are you actually going to be holding one of these things when the PlayStation 6 comes out? Let's bring this whole conversation back down to earth for a minute. All right, the single most important thing to remember here is that a patent is not a product announcement. Companies like Sony patent countless ideas that never actually become real products. It's a way for them to protect their research and explore a concept. It just means they're thinking about it and they own the idea, not that it's hitting store shelves next year. You know, when you look at the history of PlayStation controllers, this patent starts to make a lot more sense. It's just part of a long, ongoing evolution. The first DualShock back in '97 gave us the two-stick layout we still use. The 6-axis introduced motion control. The DualShock 4 played around with that central touchpad. Maybe that was a little hint of what was to come. And of course, the DualSense is all about immersion with its amazing haptics and triggers. Every step was a push forward. This patent is just the next logical, maybe ambitious, step in that long line of ideas. And that leaves us with this really fascinating question, one that gets to the very core of what we all value in gaming. Is a future where everyone can play comfortably, no matter what their physical needs are, worth giving up that tactile, instinctual feel that we've all known and mastered for generations? It's a trade-off that could very well define the next era of how we play.